A little while back, I made this post about me moving and what I'm doing with that home. And the choice that I made dramatically changed my current cash strategy. Hello everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to On Cash Flow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. So what the heck happened? Well, basically what I did was I took my paid off home, my primary residence, and I did a cash out refinance. And I turned that into my third rental property. Here's the timeline for that home. Back in 2020, I originally purchased my house for a purchase price of $110,000. Crazy, right? Then fast forward to the end of 2023, pretty much exactly 3 years later, I spent $30,000 on a renovation of this home to get it nice and fixed up. And then early 2024, because of that renovation, I got the home reappraised for my refinance, and it reappraised at $230,000. With the refinance, I got about $170,000. Plus my original cash, I had about $15,000. So after all was said and done, I had about $185,000, which is a lot more cash than what I'm used to having. Because now this brings me to what my previous cash strategy was. Previously, what I've been doing for many, many years was holding very little cash. And mainly that's because historically interest rates have been so low, it meant that holding cash, you're not really getting any interest at all. But now with the current interest rate environment we're in, you're seeing savings accounts that are easily paying upwards of 5%. But basically my previous cash strategy boiled down to only having about 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. For me, about 4 months. So this entailed having about $10,000 of cash, and that was my emergency fund. For me, that's at least 4 months of spending. So that was about how much cash that I held at any given time. When I first gave financial independence a try, I had very low expenses and no ongoing debt payments, including a mortgage because I bought my house with cash back in 2020. Again, like I said, for only $110,000. And so I had a very low amount of fixed expenses and no debt. And that's why I was able to keep a relatively low amount of cash, only around $10,000. The combination of low expenses, low fixed expenses, no mortgage, and interest rates being very low, so there was no incentive for me to hold a lot of cash because savings rates on cash were very, very low. But now, as you might imagine, things have changed drastically, and now I have a whole lot more cash at my disposal. And right now, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with it. And this predicament that I'm in kind of reminds me of a video that I made not too long ago. So about a year ago, I actually made a video on why holding too much cash is detrimental. And it's funny because here I am in that predicament, holding pretty much too much cash right now, and I don't know what to do with it. If you're interested in watching that video, I'll remind you again at the end of this video. But getting onto my new cash strategy, this is what I have in mind for the excess amount of cash that I have now come into because of that refinance. For now, I am going to be keeping a lot more cash than I'm used to. I'm going to be keeping more than $10,000. However, I'm not going to be keeping all of that $185,000 in cash. Here's the strategy that I have so far. So $15,000 of that is going to go straight into my taxable account at M1. And the reason for that is I actually kind of owe my taxable account back $15,000 because I made withdrawals in excess of what I was supposed to because I needed to use it for a down payment on some other investment properties that I had. And so I was accounting for it as I'm kind of temporarily borrowing this money for a down payment on a rental property, and I'm going to pay it back once I do my refinance. And so $15,000, boom, it's going straight into that taxable account. And then I'm going to max out my health savings account, which only needs about $3,000 more. And of course, I need to live somewhere. And for me, that means buying my next home. And wouldn't you know it, I'm recording this in my new home already. So $25,000 of that is going to go towards the down payment of this home. And last but certainly not least, probably the most juicy part of it is I'm going to direct about $50,000 of that money into making this next home my next house hack. So right now, my new primary residence, I bought it very strategically. And yes, it costs a lot more than my first home, but I am going to be using this as an opportunity for a really good house hack. And stay tuned on that because I do want to make more update videos on that and let you know how that is going. But give me some time, it's going to take time. So that large sum of cash, a lot of it is already accounted for. A lot of it I already have a plan for. But there is still a good amount of money left over that I will need to deploy in some way. Things have changed a lot in my life since becoming financially independent because I got involved in real estate investing and now I have a new primary residence with an actual mortgage. So that means that my emergency fund is going to need to expand. I'm going to need a lot more than I needed in the past. Whereas I only kept $10,000 in the past, I'm going to need a lot more because now I have, a fixed mortgage expense, and now I also have rental properties, which could also, come up with unexpected expenses. While I am saving separately for those as well, I am going to need to keep more in my personal emergency fund to account for those as well. I am really excited to talk about and make this next house hack happen for this next house. But first, we need to talk about my $100,000 plan. It's not going to be exactly that's how much I'm going to have left over, but let's say after deploying all of that other cash, I have about $100,000 left over in cash. This is what my current plan is to do with that $100,000. By no means is it a perfect plan, and by no means do I have everything figured out. My current short-term plan is to take that $100,000 and put it into a high-yield CD or a high-yield savings account. And from that, I can make a decent amount of interest, and that's going to help me a lot with my new fixed mortgage expense. Here's a good example for you. If you have $100,000 and you earn a 5% interest on that $100,000, then that's about $408 per month of interest, which ain't too bad. Now, while earning $408 of interest per month sounds pretty good, it's far from perfect. And this is what I like to call my cash dilemma. But before I get into my cash dilemma, I have another dilemma here. I need you to hit the like button on this video. If you're enjoying this video, please make sure you hit that like button. It really does help me out, and I would really appreciate that. Like I said, having $100,000 and getting a guaranteed 5% is great. It feels great. However, it's not a viable long-term strategy. I don't think holding that much cash in the long term is right for me. Yes, an increased amount, more than $10,000 like I did before. However, holding $100,000 in cash is more than 10% of my net worth, which I think is too much. And that's why I need your input. What would you do in this circumstance? Let's say you had an extra $100,000. In this current interest rate environment, in this current economy, what would you do with that $100,000? Would you keep it in cash? In the short term? Would you put it into the stock market for the long term? Would you put it into more real estate? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say. And as I mentioned earlier, it's pretty funny that I'm making this video because just 1 year before, I was making a video about how holding too much cash is detrimental. And while I do feel that same way that holding too much cash is detrimental, it's kind of ironic that I am in that situation now. If you're interested in watching that video, it'll pop up on the screen right after I get off the screen. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashflow.com, and I hope to see you next time.